What's up, y'all? So in this video, I'm gonna be going over, a few tips for just how to build a good franchise and how to win in the simulation. So if you're doing like a slow sim, or if you're doing something like a just fast sim, maybe rebuild style, you're just kind of simming through the season and stuff like that, then this should work just as good as well. Now, I'm gonna be going over a lot of topics in this video, so I'm probably going to leave timestamps kind of going through all the different stuff, and then also be making probably separate videos going more in depth on stuff like drafting, free agency, contracts, and stuff like that. But just off the jump to start it off, when it comes to just rebuilding in general, you got to understand that you shouldn't be really expecting to win anything until I would say maybe year 3 to 4. Patience is key, right? Like throughout that time when you're not really winning, you say you take a team like the Texans, Jags, or like, just Lions, like the bad teams, you should be focusing on, stacking your picks, working on your contract game, dominating free agency, things like that, drafting well, etc. You know, um, And then number two is the playbooks. So here's the thing about simulation, right? Now, some of you guys might watch guys like C4, or maybe you watch Bengal, one of the most popular, Madden franchise people. And they rebuild these God squads, right? They take these teams and, throughout the episode, or through maybe they make a series, they rebuild these teams, and they end up making these like super good teams within the span of 5 years or whatever. But by the end, right, they have like an 88 overall, but they're going 9-8, or you go 8-9 and you miss the playoffs, and you might have like 88 offense, 88 defense, just a solid overall team, right? And you still lose, and the reason why is because of the playbooks. Now, if we go here into the playbooks, I would probably say there's like a good 3 playbooks off the top of my head on offense, and I guess defense too. So what I'm running is I was running the Buffalo defense with the 4-3 quarters, and I was also running the vertical zone run with Tampa Bay. Now, in previous Maddens, specifically last year, Tampa Bay and Kansas City were by far like the best playbooks. Kansas City was a lot more or less on the ground. So if you wanted like just insane passing numbers, go Kansas City vert zone run. If you wanted more of a balance, but still really good passing, so you get like some decent running back numbers, whatever, then you go, Tampa Bay. But kind of going through the testing and then kind of just thinking about it, I think Cleveland is by far the best playbook, in my opinion. Now, T4G is a guy, Daughtery Crib, shout out him. He makes great videos, right? He just made a video going over the best playbooks and schemes for franchise. And he said that, it was by far Tampa Bay, the best one, and Buffalo on defense. And I'll just have to say I respectfully disagree. We can agree to disagree on that. Me personally, from what I've tested, this is by far better. Now, I'll explain why. So with the Cleveland playbook, right, you're going to get more of a balanced attack, right? See, it says right there, it's a West Coast zone run, right? You don't necessarily have to match the scheme, but we'll go over that in a little bit. It's a West Coast zone run. The goals of playbooks to run the ball to set up play action, attacking the short and intermediate levels of the field. And if you look at the formations in it, I mean, it's just run heavy, right? You have pretty much the same amount of single back as you do shotgun, and you also have a little bit of I form in there too. And from what I've tested, right, and I'll go ahead and show it right after this, is the running back numbers are just insane with this playbook. And then also the passing, because there'll be times where you'll have, a running back, and you'll have like 200 plus carries, right? Close to, 200 carries, and you'll have like 14 touchdowns rushing. And then your backup running back will have like, like 100 something, carries and have like 7 touchdowns. And then your fullback will have like another 4 touchdowns. It's just crazy. I'm just say that the rushing in this playbook is by far the best. So if you have a stud running back, you draft a stud running back, you want to utilize the running back you have now. So you have a Nick Chubb, so you have McCaffrey, whatever, right? Choose Cleveland, right? And then you worry about the quarterback situation after. Now, as far as the defense goes, the defense, KC is by far the best. There is no better defense than KC. Now, this one was a bit harder. It's a lot more consistent. It's a lot more easier to have a consistent offense year by year than it is a defense, because the defense is a little bit more wonky. See, with the defense, it's a lot more reliant on traits, and I'll get into traits later too, but it's a lot more reliant on traits than it is, overall and stuff like that. And you could say the same about offense, but it's a little bit different. See, with Kansas City, right, it's a 4-3 multiple playbook, so it's a great way to pair, the 4-3 quarters. And then just kind of going over the scheme fits, right? The scheme fits don't matter as much as the playbooks, but they matter in their own way. So like, for example, the vert zone run, right? It's a lot easier to get agile linemen than it is to get pass pro linemen, right? So like, if you look at the other ones, right? Like, it's a lot harder to find a pass pro all across the board if you do like a run and shoot or whatever. But in the vert zone run, it's so easy to match this personnel. And by far, strong arm's the best archetype in the, for QB. Halfback, elusive backs just dominate in the sim. Like, there's very few power backs in sim that do very good. I mean, you have like, I guess, Derrick Henry, but outside of him, there's not really a lot. Most of them are elusive backs. They just dominate. So, and it's a lot easier to move guys around when it comes to these scheme fits. So if, let's say, for example, you have a wide receiver, right? And he's just super big, right? But he's not really as fast as you like a wide receiver to be. Let's say he's like 87 speed, 86 speed. That's elite tight end speed, right? He's not going to be that great at blocking, right? Because inherently he's a wide receiver. But if you move him to tight end, he's going to do pretty good. So, as far as a vertical threat, because when you move him to tight end, he's going to turn into a vertical threat pretty much 8 out of 10 times, unless he's like a really good run blocker, which is really hard to get in a receiver and stuff like that. And then, as far as the running backs, let's say you have a wide receiver, right? You move him to running back. He's most likely going to be a receiving back archetype. But let's say you have a wide receiver that has pretty good like break tackle, juke moves, spin moves, things like that. And he's not really a great route runner. He doesn't really have great hands for a receiver. Let's say he has like mid-70s catching. Then he'd be a great back, because then let's say he's a really good running back as far as elusive back in the scheme fit. His, he's going to come back as elusive back is going to be his next best thing. So let's say he's a 75 overall, and he's a 75 overall receiving back. When you move him to running back, let's say you take a receiver, move him that running back spot, he's a 75 receiving back. His elusive back is probably going to be somewhere like 72, 73. So then you upgrade that to get him to the scheme fit, and then that's when the scheme fit comes full circle. Because when you have the scheme fit, it's not so much going to affect the stats in general as far as sim, but it's going to affect your XP and your overall. So if you read at the bottom, it says players within 3 overall points of the preferred player type will increase the scheme fit percentage, and players with the perfect fit match will earn extra XP in weekly training. So if you already got a guy that's a perfect scheme fit, he's going to get extra XP. But then you also have a coaching tree. I'll go over coaching trees in another video probably, but there's one of the coaching tree things is it no matter what the scheme fit or no matter what archetype your player is, he's going to match the scheme fit on the weekly training every time. And you have to pay quite a bit to get there as far as the staff points on the top, but you could eventually get there. Now, as far as, scheme fit on the defensive side, right? The defense for KC is a 4-3, right? So it's a multiple 4-3. It's a playbook that focuses on generating pressure on the QB with the defensive line. And the playbook includes a 3-4. But the 4-3 quarters is what I would consider a true 4-3, like dominant 4-3, right? And the reason why I think that is because in a 4-3 quarters, right? Quarters is a scheme like if you see up top that puts 4 defenders deep but allows opportunities to split the field in man and zone coverage. So 4-3 quarters is good match against versatile offenses like spreads. So one of the things that's really good about quarters is if you have a lot of teams that run spread offenses now, like they do in modern day NFLs and stuff like that, what's going to happen is your guys are going to man match when they run into the zone. And when they start doing that, things could get very confusing for the quarterback. They throw interceptions, take sacks because they don't have the right reads, the right check. It's just mayhem for them, right? So the defensive side, the scheme fit, the run stopper at left end, speed rusher at right end. You have power rusher at D tackle, right? You also have run stopper at outside, left outside linebacker, pass coverage at middle and right outside linebacker, and slot at CB. And then hybrid. Hybrid is by far the best safety archetype to have because the way that the game plays, let's say you have a stud backer, right? Let's say you have like I've done this before with let's say you have Eric Kendricks, or let's say you have like Keanu Neal, or let's say you have Deion Jones. I've actually done this with Deion Jones. I'll move him to safety, and he's just an insane safety. Now, he's going to be a run support, but since he's good in coverage and has good speed, stuff like that, he's not going to be too far off from the hybrid. And then when you put him in a hybrid, he's going to just get so much more XP because he's going to be the scheme fit. As far as the slot CBs are okay. Now, the thing that I like about slot CBs is when you upgrade them, the more and more you upgrade them, they actually give you speed. So I don't know, as far as what I know, for the other ones like man-to-man and zone archetype corners, when you upgrade them, they don't give you speed that often. Maybe here and there, but slot gives you speed. Not every single time you upgrade with the skill point, but it's here and there, and I think that another thing I like about the slot is it upgrades things like man coverage and tackling and stuff like that I think is pretty good for corners. I mean, tackling isn't as important, but I think man coverage is also good. And then here and there, maybe you upgrade the zone. You don't always have to just be slot. You want to kind of put your chips in different stuff. As far as right outside linebacker and middle linebacker, that's where the scheme fit once again helps a lot, because now you have safeties that you can put at these linebacker spots. And whenever you can utilize your personnel without just being like, oh shoot, well, this guy doesn't really serve a purpose on my team, I'm just going to trade him, or I'm going to cut him, or I'm just going to have the next best guy up. Well, hold on a minute. Maybe that guy can offer you value in a middle linebacker position or a right outside linebacker position if you don't have good depth there. And that's what I did with Derwin James. I actually have Derwin James at my right outside linebacker, even though he's a safety. And I ended up getting him in free agency and spent a lot of money to get him. But I realized that I already have pretty good safety, so I want this dominant player at this outside backer position. And you got to understand, too, typically backers aren't really going to be as fast as safeties. So whenever you can get a safety and just move them to backer, they're already going to be a top-tier athletic backer because they're just going to be so much faster. And then let's say, for example, you have a run support safety. Maybe there's a guy in the draft that's really good tackling, really good block shedding, really good, pursuit, maybe hit power, whatever. And he's not really that much of an athlete. Maybe he has okay speed for a safety, like 85 speed. Move him to backer, because now he's going to actually fit the scheme fit, because most of the time safeties are, typically going to have better coverage than backers. So they're going to fit the scheme fit off the jump when you move them. And they're going to offer you better athleticism when you're in your base defenses like 4-3 base and stuff like that. Same thing with the outside, left outside linebacker. You can do the same thing, if you have a stud defensive end and he's only like 250, you can move him to outside backer, and he's going to have good pass rushing, and he's also going to have good block shedding typically, and good just run stopping traits in general. So, that's the one thing I really like about this 4-3 quarters is I feel like it really complements the 4-3 really good with this Kansas City playbook. And if you have really good stud pass rushers or just a dominant front seven, you're just going to be eating guys alive. And I'll go over through the sim stats, here in general. But let me go. This is my actual franchise that I'm using right now. My Lions franchise. I'm in year 3 or 4, I believe, at this point now. And I actually won the Super Bowl last year, and we're 8-6 this year, but I'm slow simming. I'm not just simming through the season because this is my actual franchise. But if we go to the roster here, I'll show you kind of how I constructed my team. So with QB, I have a strong arm guy, right? This is a guy I drafted in, I think, year 2 or 3. Jared Goff was on the team. He was sucking. I just couldn't stand him anymore. He has terrible traits. I just trade him away. And he popped green interest, so I was able to get some pick value and draft picks and stuff like that for him. And I ended up drafting this dude. And this dude was actually, his quarterback class was actually super deep. So I think the top 10 in his class were all top 5 picks. Were quarterbacks. So all the top 5 projected players in that draft class were quarterbacks, and he was the odd man out. He slipped all the way down to, I believe, like 12 or 13, and I picked him, and he just did really good. He won me a Super Bowl. Now, he doesn't have good traits, but I'm kind of trying to work around that. He's coming up on a contract probably in a year or 2. I don't know if I'm going to keep him, because I don't necessarily like paying quarterbacks. I'll probably go over that in a later video. But my halfback is just Swift. They already had Swift when I got here, so he's just a dominant player. You give him the ball in space, he's just gonna run the ball super effectively. He's also a really good pass catcher. He's just really good. And my receivers, these guys are just flyers. So Amon-Ra ended up leaving my team after a couple seasons. He did win the Super Bowl with us, but he wanted a huge contract, and I said no. I got him up to like a 90-something overall, like a 91. He wanted insane money. I don't really like paying a lot of receivers, so I just said, screw it, you can walk. And we still have Jabo, or Jameson Williams, but nicknamed Jabo. He's just a dog. 98 speed. I drafted these two dudes, and they both started off as 70-something overalls, like 72, 73. Got them up to an 84, 80. And, 99 speed, 97 speed. These guys just fly. It's really hard to stop this offense. Same thing with Hawkinson. He's a top 3 tight end at this point. I'm pretty sure him and Pitts are like the only 99s at the tight end position in my franchise. And Hawkinson's a beast. I have a route technician, and I also have grab and go, so he gets like better rack animations. Offensive line. Now, here's the thing, my personal philosophy I like doing is if you can create a pass rush and stop the pass rush, you're going to have an easy time, or not an easy time, but a lot better time in your franchises. So your quarterback's going to be well protected, and you're also going to be hounding opposite or opposing quarterbacks. So having a dominant line is really good. Now, as far as my left tackle, I believe they had Taylor Decker, or I'm not really sure who was before him. Pretty sure it was Taylor Decker as their tackle, but he wanted, or actually I believe he was already like 32 or something, or 30. So I ended up trading him while he still had value, and I drafted this dude. He started off as a 70-something, but my coaching tree and a little bit of morale boost, temporary boost, got him up to an 83 within a year, which is insane. You see, he only has 1 year under his belt, and he's already an 83. By the end of his, career, he'll be close to like a, 90-something overall. Same with Jonah Jackson, stud. Like all my linemen are studs. Like all of these guys. This dude, 2 years under his belt, already 92. This guy actually got lucky. He was a 3rd round pick, I believe. and he had a round 1 talent grade on him, so I ended up taking him in the second round. He had a star development. He's just a beast. I still have Panay Sewell. This guy's my franchise tackle. He's coming up on a contract year. I'm not really sure if I want to pay him, but I typically like paying my offensive linemen, especially if they're superstar. Or I don't think there's any X factor tackles, speaking of, but if they have abilities or if they're star developments, I typically like keeping those guys because you can't actually dev or get an upgraded dev trait on offensive linemen. It's super dumb that that's a thing, but that's just the way the game is. Stud pass rusher. This guy I got last year. He's a stud pass rusher. I got him mid first round, late first round. He was actually an outside backer, and that's where I was saying earlier, like, he's an outside backer and he's a stud pass rusher, but my outside backer typically at his spot would be a run stopper. This guy was a really good rusher, I believe, a power rusher. Oh yeah, he's a good power rusher. I upgraded his run stopper up some because that's what the scheme fit calls for, but he's a pretty good power rusher. And I took him as an outside linebacker, a left outside linebacker, moved him to left end. He's just eating up right now. Hutchinson, he was already here when I got here or started the franchise. Just a really good pass rusher. You just want, in a 4-3, you want your outside guys, your defensive ends to just be like your typical outside backer in a 3-4. 250, 260, not super huge like, your defensive ends in a 3-4 are typically like D tackles. On a 4-3, you want your guys to be like just stud pass rushers, right? And then in the D tackle, I got Quinnen Williams in free agency. So the way that I constructed my team, which is typically like front seven, dominant, right? Offensive line, dominant, right? Because if you look, right, 89, I got a 90, I got 99 with Derwin, moving him to right outside linebacker. And then my corners, I have good corners, right? But they're not as good as the other guys. And these guys are just good because they got morale boosts and stuff like that. Like, they're not even that good. He's a true, like, 88, 87 overall, or 89, whatever. Same with these guys. I also got coaching skills trees, so it upgrades them some. But yeah, you see like 80 overall, 86, like, dominant front seven. You don't need your DBs to be super good. You just need them to be serviceable, good or good traits and stuff like that. But dominant front seven, good offensive line, and you're on a good track there. Going on to the traits. Now, the traits is interesting, right? So going back to what I was saying earlier, the simulation isn't necessarily gonna give you the outcome you want if you have a good overall team. So that's what I was saying earlier. You might see people do these rebuilds and they have like super good teams or god squads, and they make like a good team within like a 4 or 5 year span. They're going for a Super Bowl push and they end up 9-8. Well, bad playbook and bad traits. See, with the defense, going back to the defense, I was saying earlier that the defense, you're gonna have the defense play a little bit wonky compared to the offense because of the way that the traits work and stuff like that. So if you see here, Quinnen Williams has bull rush and swim move and high motor. So one thing that I say about traits is they influence the outcome of the simulation. So for example, a 90 overall QB in Tampa offense with like paranoid sense of pressure, conservative force passes, and he doesn't have a no tight spiral trait, he's gonna get outplayed by a 65 overall who has those traits. Like, he's gonna have ideal sense of pressure, aggressive force passes, or ideal force passes, and then he has a tight spiral trait. That 65 overall is gonna play better in the same playbook. So that's just how the game is. I'm not, don't get mad at me. That's just how EA makes the game. Like, I really don't know what to say about that. I wish it was more on the overall of your team, but that's not how it works. I'm just here to report the facts. So one thing I could say is, it's a lot more harder to have a top 5 defense, but if you have guys with good traits, it's definitely doable. On defense, you want your D line to have like bull rush traits, all of the all the pass rush traits, the more the better. You want to them to have high motor and stuff too, helps too as well. And then guys that you have in coverage, you want them to have the aggressive play ball tendency. So you see here, aggressive. You look at my other corners, pretty sure all of them have aggressive. So you look at Amani Awarie, aggressive, high motor. You look at Joseph Colvin, this dude, 81 overall superstar, aggressive, strip ball, high motor. So, I mean, you kind of see the common theme here. And then kind of giving you a little bit of insight, this dude right here, Colvin, I traded for when he was a rookie. And he had no development at all. I put him in the nickel. He has aggressive play ball tendency, and he just goes insane. Gets tons of turnovers. The aggressive play ball tendency makes him get a ton of turnovers, and he just gets, goes crazy and gets himself up to a superstar within a year. Within one single season, they just go crazy. Now, this dude, right? He's 24. By the time that he's, 30, he's going to be the best safety in the league because the superstar, the scheme fit, he's going to get more XP with both of those. So he's going to by far be a really good safety. He's only 24 years old. I probably don't have to pay this dude a bunch of money once his contract comes, right? And that's just kind of going over the traits. Now, as far as the QB, just to end the little trait topic, the QB, right? This one is where it's the most important. Like I was saying earlier, this dude right here, I drafted last year. He won me a Super Bowl, right? Props to him. He won me a Super Bowl. Within, 5 years, he won me a Super Bowl already. By year 3, I think, or year 2, he won me a Super Bowl. Now, this dude, if you look at his traits, not really good at all, right? Pocket QB, paranoid, conservative, force passes, tight spiral. Now, the tight spiral is cool, right? It's good. I mean, the paranoid sense of pressure, though, is where it's really bad. Now, the way that it works is if you go on a slow sim, especially, and you just watch them play, this dude is absolutely terrible. I mean, I just can't fathom in words how bad this dude is. Because you might be like, well, he's a 99 overall. He has an X factor. Like, how is he bad? Because the way the sim works. Again, playbooks, traits. Overall, not so much. Doesn't really matter too much. It is a little bit of a factor, but it's not as much as the other ones, right? Pocket QB, when I watch this dude in the slow sim, he never, and I say never, scrambles out. He rolls out to try to throw something and maybe throw the ball away, but he will never, for the love of God, scramble for any yards. He won't, even if there's a wide open lane on the right, he rolls out, nothing's there. He doesn't even rush for a couple yards and slides and takes his yards. He never does it because he's a pocket QB. Same thing with paranoid sense of pressure. Whenever there's a whiff of pressure on this dude, he just throws some stupid shit. And he's also conservative forcing passes is the next worst thing. Now, you would think that that's a good trait, but in simulation, aggressive and ideal is by far better because ideal is the best one. Or I would say in forcing passes, it's the second best. Aggressive is the best. Now, aggressive is better because the way that the sim works, your guy's going to be forcing more passes. So, by default, he's going to be throwing the ball a lot more. So he's going to be throwing more touchdowns. You might throw a little bit more picks with that trait, but it's not going to be super significant to where it's like super bad, right? Because if you see here, this guy has conservative force passes. But if I go over to his stats for the season, right? If I go over the stats, you'd be like, well, he has conservative force passes. He's a good QB. He's a 99. He has thrown 20 interceptions, and we're not even at week 18 yet. He can throw more for all we know. So it's like, when this dude's contract comes up, that's what I'm saying. I don't know if I want to pay him. I'm probably going to trade him away, before I have to give him a contract. That's just the way the game is, man. I'm looking at this dude here. I ended up actually trading for this backup QB that I have right now. So when his contract comes up, this Calvin Ward dude, I have this dude here, this backup to potentially be my next quarterback. This Alex Rogan dude, or Andy Rogan, I don't remember his name. Andy Rogan. He's a 23-year-old one-year prospect out of Stanford, and he's a strong arm, I believe. Or he's a scrambler, but his strong arm's not too far off. He's just one skill point below it. But look at it, scrambling QB. So that means when you watch the sim, he's going to actually roll out and actually take yards if it's there. He's not just going to sit like a duck in the pocket and take sacks. Ideal sense of pressure, when he's going to get pressured, he's not going to be like that fucker throwing interceptions left and right. You saw that guy. He said, it said conservative force passes, but he has 20 picks. It's because of that sense of pressure. The sense of pressure is by far the most important trait on the quarterback. If it's paranoid, just trade him, or don't even start him. Don't even start him if you're in simulation, because he's just going to do horrible for you. Ideal is by far the best. Sense of pressure, I think trigger happy is the neck, or it goes ideal, average, trigger happy, oblivious, and paranoid. And you see the guy that I have starting, the X Factor dude, the 99 overall, has paranoid. So he has the worst one. And I mean, he throws 30 touchdowns right in a season. I mean, season ain't over. He could throw more, but he already has 20 picks. Like, you're kind of banking, like when you have a guy with that trait, that paranoid trait, he's probably going to be like a Jameis Winston, right? If he's a 99 overall X Factor, he's going to do good by default in simulation, but he's going to be like Jameis. He's going to throw 50 touchdowns and 50 picks because of that paranoid sense of pressure. And the tight spiral is just a little bit of a bonus. It's just more of your guy's going to throw a little bit better as far as simulation goes, a little bit extra yards, a little more touchdowns maybe. But it's not necessarily a make or break. The sense of pressure is by far the best, though. Traits don't really matter too much on, halfbacks and stuff like that, and receivers. I mean, receivers, there's one that says drops open passes. You don't necessarily want that for your team. But what I would say is the traits you should focus on, having the good traits, is QB and your DBs and your front seven. If you have that, you should be good. So, if you have DBs that have conservative play ball type, it's just as bad as it's just as bad as the paranoid sense of pressure. Like, it's pretty much useless. The guy could be a 99 overall CB with conservative play ball type, and he probably only get one pick the whole year. And that's just the way it is. So going on to the next thing, you don't need a high overall team to be competitive in the sim. All right, you just need, again, good scheme, playbook, guys with good traits. Not all your players are going to be perfect traits. Like you see on my trade, my scheme fits isn't 100% under the team schemes thing. It's close to like 70 or something like that, 77, I believe, and stuff. So, as long as you have those guys like DBs, front seven, QB, should be good. It's the most important. And yeah. Now I'm gonna actually go into show you proof that these actually work. So right now I'm in my I slow sim in this Lions franchise. This is my slow sim league. So I don't necessarily just do like a rebuild style. I do rebuild the team, but I actually watch the games and slow sim it. I don't just do fast sim where I go sim through the season or sim the playoffs and then sim the offseason. I don't do stuff like that. I go week by week, slow sim, scout my team, really build the team. Now, one thing that I'll show you with the Texans, I tried this, right? The scheme thing and the playbook thing. Worst team in the NFL, right? 73 overall on both sides of the ball. Now, if you look here, under the managed staff team schemes, I actually didn't use the Cleveland playbook or any of the top playbooks like Kansas City or Tampa Bay. I used Indy because I wanted to see if I would get Jonathan Taylor type numbers with the playbook. Didn't work. Did not work anywhere close. But you see, I did use the Kansas City playbook. Now, if you look at here, the stats and awards, worst offense, trying to use the Colts playbook, right? I thought, well, doing the testing, I thought, well, Jonathan Taylor always finishes with 1,800 rushing yards and like insane rushing touchdowns, right? So I was like, let me try, using Colts playbook. Didn't work. Worst offense in the league by far. Only 700 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown. Even my backup didn't even get that much. Backup running back didn't even get that much volume and touchdowns. So it's just not worth it. The reason why that is a thing with Jonathan Taylor, Cooper Kupp, Tom Brady, Mike Evans is that's the way they're programmed in the game. So like if you look at Cooper Kupp, typically at the end of the year, Cooper Kupp's going to have the most receiving yards and the most receiving touchdowns. So if you look at passing, Tom Brady will always finish first. Same thing with Cooper Kupp. Actually, this one came out a little bit different. Maybe Cooper Kupp got hurt or something, but even still, like 14 touchdowns and 1,400 yards damn near is insane. Mike Evans is always top 3, which is crazy. And it's typically because Brady's insane passing seasons, but that's just the way they're coded in the game. It's not necessarily reflected on their playbook. It's just simply because that's the way they coded them. I mean, 5,400 yards, insane. That's just how the game is. That's the way that Madden codes them in the sim. It has nothing to do with their playbooks, right? Because you saw rushing. You see right here, right? Look at rushing. Go down to NFL. Jonathan Taylor is always going to be top 3. 20 touchdowns, 300 rushing carries, like 1,800 yards. Same with Derrick Henry, right? You try using Tennessee playbook, you're probably not going to do that good. You try using Jonathan Taylor or Colts playbook, you see what happened here. 32 in the league, last in the league. But you see the defense. I told you the defense, I ended up using Kansas City. I just wanted to see the offense and test it out. But defense, use Kansas City. I used the 4-6 because I just wanted to see. But I said earlier, the scheme fit or the scheme in general is not really going to affect the sim stats that much, really, at all. But the playbook is what matters most. Now, you saw worst team in the league, right? 73 overall defense for the Texans, and they have the 3rd best defense in the league. 4-13 team ended with the 3rd best defense. It's because of the playbook, dude. That's just how it is. That's the way I simmed through this whole season. I didn't play a single down. I didn't play a single game, but the defense just went crazy. 3rd overall defense in the league, and we're 4-13. Every time you use this playbook, you're always one of your pass rushers is going to have double-digit sacks every single time. If you have 2 good pass rushers, like I said earlier, if you build it kind of how I was showing my roster in the Lions team, what's going to happen is you're going to have a guy with potentially sack-breaking record numbers, right? Breaking record sack numbers or whatever, however you say it. He's going to have potential to get that, but then your second guy will have something similar to like 10 plus sacks. Your best guy will have like 14 sacks and stuff like that. In this simulation, we didn't really get insane interceptions. But if I go over to the other simulation, right, this one is crazy. This is by far the craziest one because it shows you once again that it doesn't matter, right? I think it was the Bears one that I did. If it's still here, yeah, here it is. Matt Eberflus Bears. This is a franchise I started to just, again, test out the playbooks with one of the worst teams. 77, 76 on offense, defense. We're going to look here, staff, team schemes. I'm going to show you that I have the playbooks equipped. And you see, Cleveland, KC on defense. We went 4.75 for this one instead of the 4-6, but again, I'm just testing out stuff, but you see the playbook still remains static. I'm not really changing them. And here, I ended up with a bottom offense, but I'll kind of explain in a little bit. But you see top 12 defense in the league with one of the worst rosters in the game, right? Like it doesn't get any weirder than that. And if you look here, look at that 22 and a half sacks with Robert Quinn. Robert Quinn's an 86 overall normal development player. He's not even an X Factor player, and he had 22 and a half sacks. Now, 86 overall is a pretty good overall, but he's not like a stud. Like if you have Nick Bosa, if you have Khalil Mack, if you have Aiden Hutchinson, like in my Lions rebuild, whatever, he's gonna put up numbers similar to that. You know, it's quite uncommon to get 20 sacks in a season, right? But he'll have something crazy like that too. You'll have like 14 or something. The next guy, like I said once again, Roquan Smith, he's not even really a pass rusher. He's a Mike linebacker, but since it's a 4-3 and Matt Eberflus is a 4-3, they have him at right outside linebacker, but 9 sacks, right? And that's still not even that bad. He's a sack away from double-digit sacks. And we didn't really get too many interceptions in this one, but it just shows you. Now, if we go over to the offense, like I was saying earlier, I wanted to explain the offense because it's, you know, you see 27th and you're like, oh, that's trash. pretty much 4,400 yards, 23 and 9. But if you look here, this is what I was saying earlier, traits. If you look at Justin Fields, paranoid sense of pressure, one of the worst traits that you can have on a QB, right? Everything else looks okay, but that paranoid sense of pressure, man, it's a killer. And then if you look here, rushing, look at the rushing numbers. David Montgomery, almost 300 carries, 1,100 yards, 11 touchdowns, 4.2 yards a carry. You go here, and then my backups, right? Khalil Herbert, he only had, 54 carries, and he had 5 touchdowns. My third back had 31 carries, 5 touchdowns. My fullback, for Christ's sakes, had 7 carries, 4 touchdowns. And even my tight end and my backup QB, like this is a rushing touchdown machine. And you see the passing numbers aren't even that bad. Like 4,400 yards ain't bad. If you had a better trait, he'd probably get up to at least 30 touchdowns. But, you know, we just didn't because his traits suck. But even here, like 9 touchdowns, you know, 2 1,000-yard receivers ain't even that bad. But the defense is what really took over. I mean, this is just a bad team, bad roster, and we still had a top 12 defense. That's above middle of the pack. That's 32 teams in the league. Middle of the pack would be like 16 and a half or so, or around the 16, 17 area. We ranked 12th, so just outside the top 10 with a 76 overall team, one of the worst rosters on the game. I'll show you another example here. If we go over to the Raiders rebuild that I did. I know this video is getting pretty long probably, but again, I'm gonna put timestamps so you guys can kind of skim through. I'm trying to get as much in here as I can and explain it the best I can. I'm not really that good at explaining things, but again, team schemes, just to show you what I'm running. Right here, we're doing, again, Cleveland, Kansas City, right? We'll go over to the stats. Now, the Raiders in this, I believe, are like an 83 and a 80. So they're not even like the Bills. They're not like, you know, the other team, like the other top teams, Tampa Bay, Bills, Chargers, you know, teams like that. And we still finished, you know, top 10 in both offense and defense, dude. Offense, we finished 7th, and defense, we finished, I believe, 4th. Yeah. So if you look here, I actually did I did something to kind of you know, show you something here. This Jake DeLaga guy or whatever, I don't even know who this dude is. He's so bad. He's like a 50 overall or 55, but the traits that he had, I put him at trigger happy. Now, he doesn't have a great, you know, sense of pressure trait, but he has ideal force passes and tight spiral. So I put him in, but for some reason the computer took him down on the depth chart. So I actually put him as a starter, and then they actually put in Derek Carr. And like 177 pass attempts, I'd have to say he played probably like the first 5 games of the season, if I'd have to say. If I'm kind of doing the math correctly, that kind of sounds around like 40 to 50 pass attempts in a game, which is right around what most typically what Sim would produce. But even though he played, right, this trash 55 overall, played 5 games, he had 9 touchdowns, 3 picks, right? This Derek Carr, only playing what, 11, 10 games, had 26 touchdowns and 3,600 yards with only 9 interceptions. And then you look at the rushing, and look, there, Josh Jacobs, short of 300 carries, 15 touchdowns, 5 yards a carry. Same thing with the backup running back, almost 100 touches, and he has 9 touchdowns. What running back in the league that is a backup has 9 touchdowns? Like, there's really not any. Maybe someone like a Kareem Hunt, but even then, it's like that's so much volume on the ground. And then you look at here, um, I believe my fullback also got some rushing work too. If I look at the rushing touchdowns, oh no, it was just tight ends, but I believe this is my fullback, my backup tight end, because I don't know if we have a fullback on the roster. But you see, once again, insane rushing numbers and decent to good passing numbers. If you look at Devontae Adams, 14 touchdowns, 1,600 yards, another 1,000-yard receiver with 85 catches and 4 touchdowns. Like, it doesn't get any better. You look at the defense, once again, Kansas City playbook. We have a guy that's just short of double-digit sacks, but we ended up finishing 4th overall on defense. So I'm not really concerned with individual sack numbers and stuff. I just want a defense that will be able to hold the door, to stop opposing offenses, stuff like that. But it is interesting sometimes when these guys like Robert Quinn get 22 sacks. It's pretty cool to see. But, I mean, you see here a lot of interceptions. There's not one single guy who had like an insane amount of interceptions, but a lot of interceptions by different dudes. Once again, another example with the different team, showing you in different, franchises. It's not like I'm in one franchise. These are different franchises, different cloud franchise saves that I'm showing you. I'll show you the last one here, the Dolphins, because it's getting quite long for the video, but the Dolphins here, right? Same thing, right? Go over here. We ended up finishing 12-5 with this. Go over to the staff just to show you the team, the scheme and the playbook I'm running. We're running 4-3 cover 3 and KC. Now here I was actually using vertical zone run in Atlanta because that's one of the other top playbooks. I just wanted to test it out, but we still finished really good. And, we're still using KC on defense, right? Go to the stats. What does it show, right? Middle of the pack offense, right? I'm not in Cleveland, but again, top 10 defense, top defense, man. Once again, with KC playbook on a different team. We go over to the defense. Look at the defense, dude. Insane defense. 2 guys with double-digit sacks, 13 sacks, 13 with him. And then you have a couple guys with 5 and 6 and stuff like that. But if you look at the interceptions, like I was saying earlier with the traits, this is where the traits would reign king right here. This Xavier Howard had 10 interceptions in a year. That is absolutely insane. And if you look at his player card, go over to the ratings, look at what trait he has. Aggressive play ball tendency. The best trait for a DB, aggressive play ball tendency. Like I said earlier, if you have conservative, these guys just don't make plays like this. You're not going to see a conservative play ball tendency DB get 10 picks in a season. You're just not. That's just the way that the sim goes. Again, don't get mad at me. That's just EA's, weird little nuances that they do with their coding of the game, whatever. But you see here, I was using Atlanta's playbook, and this was actually a really good playbook, man. Every time, for some reason, Mariota finishes like top 10 in passing yards. So I was like, let me go ahead and try, Atlanta's playbook. We still finished pretty good, man. As far as overall offense, 5,000 yards for Teddy B. Like, Teddy B's not an elite quarterback, and he's getting elite quarterback numbers. 37 and 11, that's just insane, right? You look at the rushing. This one wasn't as much of a volume heavy like Cleveland, but it's still pretty solid. 2 running backs with 150 plus carries. He had 200 carries. So you have a running back with 200 carries. You have another one with 160. And then both of these guys get like 6 and 7 touchdowns. So not too bad. And then you have a fullback too with 6 touchdowns. Alec Ingold right here. So, I mean, you see it right here, man. I mean, it's no fluke. Consistently, once again, the playbook will just reign king. That's just how it works. The playbooks are gonna reign insane. Um, the Kansas City playbook. I like running 4 3/4 with it. Same with Cleveland. I like running the West Coast zone run or vertical zone run. But then again, the scheme fit is just more for XP purposes and stuff like that. It's not really so much gonna influence the outcome of the simulation and stats and stuff like that. It's not really gonna, influence stuff like that. But that's just basically what I wanted to go over was different ways that you can get really good simulation stats and get really good teams with just simulating. I know a lot of people do like rebuilds and stuff, and they make good teams like I said earlier, and they don't win because of the playbooks and the schemes and scheme fits and traits. Like, those things matter. They matter more than you think, man. And it's kind of sad that a 99 overall quarterback like that Calvin Ward I have in my Lions franchise is bad just because of that paranoid sense of pressure. But yeah, man, I just wanted to go over that. At the end of the day, just try to have fun in your franchises. Good luck, and it just shows, man. I took the sorry ass Lions, bottom of the division, all the way to winning a Super Bowl. By year 3 and 4, so, or 3 to 4. I don't quite remember what year it was, but within 3 to 4 years, winning a Super Bowl, man. Like, I mean, it's quite insane. This is just simply me utilizing what I told you guys, the playbooks, the schemes, the scheme fits, trades, contracts, dominating free agency, things like that. Not user playing at all, just straight simulation, no force wins, no trades, no cheese, just straight up, hard work and high IQ stuff. Like, that's simply it. But anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up the video. This ran way too long than it should have, but I'll go ahead and put the timestamps at the end of in the description or whatever. But let me know if you have any questions in the comments. I read the comments. I'll go ahead and respond. If you guys have any questions or any insight, or maybe you have something that that I don't know that you'd like to share, so go ahead and drop it. But anyways, I'm out.